What happens when the love of your life reappears after decades of silence? The reunion of Jack and Evelyn, 30 years after their separation, promises not only to revive memories but also to provoke questions about what it truly means to love someone. Both carry intertwined stories of unfulfilled dreams and diverging paths, and now, in an unexpected moment, their lives cross once more. Jack Carter, now a 54-year-old man, lives in a small town in Arizona where he owns a mechanic shop. He is a practical, often reserved man, marked by the choices he has made over the years. In his youth, he dreamed of being a photographer and traveling the world, but life led him down a simpler, more monotonous path. The pain of having left Evelyn behind still weighs on his heart, and he finds himself trapped in a comfortable but emotionless routine. As his hands work with tools, his mind drifts to the young dreamer he once loved. On the other side of the country, in New York, Evelyn Verde has become a renowned fashion photographer. At 52, her life seems vibrant and filled with success, surrounded by artwork and sophisticated cameras. However, behind this polished facade lies a lonely woman marked by the absence of her first love. With each click of her camera, Evelyn seeks to fill the void left by Jack's departure. Although she has been married twice, she has never forgotten the young man who made her believe in the power of love. The pain of their separation drove her to immerse herself in her career, but the echoes of longing persist, challenging her to reassess her priorities. Fate, however, has a curious way of rewriting stories. 30 years after that separation, Jack and Evelyn's paths cross again in a small town in Maine. In a cozy cafe, surrounded by the colorful autumn trees, they meet by chance. The reunion is charged with emotions, memories, and questions about what could have been. The nostalgic atmosphere becomes the perfect backdrop for reopening old wounds and the possibility of a new beginning. As they confront the past, both must decide if there is still room for love in their lives. Jack finds himself facing a difficult choice: to remain trapped in what could have been, or to allow himself the chance for new love. Evelyn, on her part, must confront the pain of having let Jack go and consider whether it's possible to rewrite her story. The reunion is not just a clash with the past, but an opportunity for healing and reflection on what truly matters. In this reunion scenario, their lives are filled with challenges and emotional decisions. Jack and Evelyn not only confront the echoes of a lost love, but also the urgency of living fully. Their story is a reminder that love, even after years of separation, can resonate with the same intensity, defying logic and time. The past may have shaped their lives, but it is the present that will determine their future. The question is, will they have the courage to move forward together, or will fate separate them once again? The reunion between Jack and Evelyn was not just a moment filled with nostalgia, but also a turning point in their lives. As emotions began to flow, a series of challenges emerged, testing not only the connection that still existed between them, but also their individual strengths. After that first encounter in the cafe, Jack found himself plunged into a whirlwind of feelings. He hadn't expected Evelyn to still have the power to make his heart race. But with the euphoria of the reunion came painful memories. The guilt and sadness of not having been able to fully move on began to weigh heavily on him. The life in his mechanic shop, which once provided comfort, now felt like a prison. He questioned whether he could really open his heart again. Doubts assailed him. What if she didn't want anything serious? What if I got hurt again? Meanwhile, Evelyn was trying to navigate the confusion that Jack stirred within her. She worked hard to maintain the image of a successful woman, but the truth was that loneliness was eating away at her. The pressures of the fashion world, with its incessant demands and superficialities, had left her exhausted. Despite her accomplishments, the inner voice questioning her choices had never silenced. The reunion with Jack brought to the surface a part of herself that she had buried under the weight of her career. She wondered if she could set aside the security she had built to allow herself to feel again. Challenges started to arise soon after their first encounter. Jack, upon returning to his routine, realized that his shop was no longer a source of satisfaction. The work that once fulfilled him now felt empty. He learned that the rent for his space would increase, and he would have to let go of one of his mechanics who had been with him for years. The burden of responsibility and the pain of potentially betraying those who relied on him became almost unbearable. Meanwhile, Evelyn faced her own crisis. The magazine she worked for decided she needed a new creative direction. The pressures to produce something innovative began to take a toll on her mental health. The idea of losing her position terrified her, but the possibility of seeing Jack again made her question if that was truly what she wanted. Jack decided he needed some time to reflect. He began walking around the city, searching for clarity. During one of his walks, he met Ava, a young artist working at a local gallery. Full of life and dreams, Ava became an unexpected friend for Jack. She encouraged him to explore his passions and not to get trapped by what the world expected of him. Sometimes, we need to leave fear behind and allow ourselves to live what we really want, she would say, her words echoing in his mind. However, Jack felt divided. He wanted to open his heart, but the fear of getting hurt again kept him at a distance. Meanwhile, Evelyn decided to step away from her chaotic routine. On a whim, she chose to visit the small town where everything began. Upon her arrival, she was hit by a wave of memories and emotions. Determined to reconnect with Jack, she headed to the auto shop, but when she got there, she found Jack in a vulnerable moment, arguing with one of his mechanics about the need for layoffs. The scene made her hesitate. The man she loved was still there, but life had shaped him in ways she didn't expect. However, when they saw each other again, the tension was palpable. Jack tried to hide his fragility, but Evelyn noticed the worry in his eyes. Their conversation flowed between nervous laughter and heavy silences, but soon shifted into a debate about the future. Jack expressed his insecurity about the changes in his life, while Evelyn spoke about the pressures she faced in the fashion world. Both were successful in their fields, but professional fulfillment did not fill the emotional void they felt. As the days went by, each faced their own battles. Jack began to consider the possibility of selling the shop and pursuing his dream of being a photographer. However, the thought of abandoning something so familiar terrified him. Ava's opinion weighed heavily on his mind, but the fear of the unknown kept him trapped. Evelyn, on the other hand, struggled to find a balance between her career and the new connection blossoming with Jack. The friendship that began to flourish between them was filled with uncertainties, and the emotional challenges they faced only complicated things further. As the days passed, both were forced to confront their deepest fears. Jack questioned whether he had the courage to follow his dream, and Evelyn dealt with the pressure of a world that always seemed to demand more from her. Their reunion was not just a chance to rewrite the story they had left behind, but also an opportunity for self-discovery and overcoming obstacles. They needed to decide if the love they once felt still had a place in their lives, and, more importantly, if they were willing to fight for it. The journey was just beginning, and the challenges ahead would test the strength of their hearts. Jack and Evelyn found themselves at a crucial moment in their lives. But the feeling of hope soon mingled with uncertainty. After that first reunion, the connection they both felt began to transform into a minefield of conflicting emotions. While Jack struggled to find a path between his responsibilities and dreams, Evelyn felt trapped in a web of expectations and pressures that left her exhausted. The days following their reunion were marked by a series of twists and turns. Jack decided he needed change. He began to explore the world of photography, something that had always fascinated him, but that he had never had the courage to pursue. However, the decision to sell the shop was more difficult than he had imagined. Each time he thought about letting go of that space, memories of years of hard work and bonds with his mechanics flooded his mind. The reality of laying off an employee, someone who trusted him, weighed heavily on his conscience. He felt like a traitor, and that kept him from moving forward. Insecurity consumed him, and he questioned whether he truly had the talent for photography. The thought of failing again paralyzed him. Meanwhile, Evelyn decided she needed some time for herself. She stepped away from the frantic pace of the fashion world and, in an attempt to reconnect with her true passions, began experimenting with new forms of art. However, the pressure from the publisher who had hired her continued to mount. Meetings became more frequent, and the demands grew more rigorous. With every piece of negative feedback she received, Evelyn's confidence dwindled. She felt like an imposter in a world that should have been hers. Even with Jack by her side, insecurities trailed her. The friendship between Jack and Evelyn began to blossom, but not without challenges. One day, while they were together in a park, a heated argument erupted. Jack, frustrated with his own insecurities, made a comment about the superficiality of the fashion world, something he saw reflected in Evelyn. This hit her like a punch to the stomach. She felt insulted, as if her career and accomplishments were not valued. "You don't know what it's like," Evelyn said, tears in her eyes. "I worked hard to get here, and you just don't understand." Jack, surprised by the intensity of her reaction, realized that his words had opened a wound he hadn't known existed. After their discussion, both Jack and Evelyn distanced themselves. Jack felt guilty, while Evelyn buried herself even deeper in her work, trying to forget the pain. The pressure caused her to lose track of time and the things that truly mattered. She began neglecting her health, often sacrificing hours of sleep and meals in the name of work. Stress piled up and her mental health began to deteriorate. Sleepless nights became common, and anxiety attacks became a regular part of her life. In this tense environment filled with misunderstandings, Ava, the young artist who had become friends with Jack, decided to intervene. She noticed the shift in Jack's energy and encouraged him to seek reconciliation with Evelyn. "Sometimes, the people we love need to know we're willing to fight for them," Ava said, her wisdom stemming from her own life experiences. Jack hesitated, but Ava's words echoed in his mind. He knew he needed to apologize, but the fear of further rejection kept him paralyzed. Finally, in a moment of courage, Jack decided it was time to open up. He sought out Evelyn and found her at one of her exhibitions. The room was crowded, but the tension between them was palpable. When their eyes met, a wave of emotions engulfed them. Jack approached her, and with a trembling voice, he apologized. "I didn't mean to hurt you. The truth is, I miss you, and I don't know how to deal with it." Evelyn, looking at him, saw the sincerity in his gaze. She realized that despite their differences, Jack was willing to confront his own fears. The conversation wasn't easy, but it was a necessary step. They began to share not only their insecurities, but also their hopes. Jack spoke about his ambitions to be a photographer, and Evelyn revealed her struggles in the fashion world. The vulnerability they both displayed brought them closer, and their friendship began to strengthen once again. However, the road ahead was still filled with challenges. Jack needed to decide if he was willing to take the leap and pursue his dream, while Evelyn faced the mounting pressure of her career. The reunion and honest conversations were just the beginning. Both realized they would need to confront their fears and limitations for the connection they had rediscovered to flourish. The lessons they were learning along the way became fundamental, and the journey of self-discovery they were about to embark on promised not only challenges, but also the possibility of renewed love. They were just beginning to understand that to grow, sometimes one must let go of what is comfortable and allow themselves to be vulnerable. The conversation between Jack and Evelyn, though difficult, brought a new sense of relief. Both were determined to face their fears and insecurities, but life had other plans. On a sunny morning, while Jack was on his new journey as a photographer, he received a call that would change everything. It was news about one of the mechanics from the shop, his longtime friend, who had been in a serious car accident. Jack's heart sank upon hearing the words from a colleague, and a mix of fear and guilt washed over him. "I shouldn't have sold the shop," Jack thought, as feelings of helplessness and regret engulfed him. He had distanced himself from that world which, although draining, was familiar and safe. Now, the weight of responsibility hit him like a truck. Jack knew that despite his aspirations in photography, the community he had built at the shop needed him. The mechanic, who had always been a source of support, was now in a hospital bed, fighting for his life. Jack found himself forced to confront his choices. The dream of being a photographer felt small and distant in the face of the urgency to be there for those who relied on him. In this moment of crisis, Jack realized that his actions impacted not only himself but also those around him. He remembered Evelyn, who had always supported him and was also fighting her own battles. The thought of failing, not just for himself but for everyone who depended on him, was unbearable. What Jack had thought was an act of courage, pursuing his dreams, now felt selfish. He decided he needed to return to the shop, if only to help, but also to reevaluate what success truly meant to him. Meanwhile, Evelyn was at the peak of her career, but a shadow of anxiety loomed over her. After her reunion with Jack, she tried to focus on her work, but the pressure became unbearable. At a fashion event, a famous designer made demeaning comments about her work, and it hit her hard. The insecurity she had tried to bury began to resurface, and the idea of being an imposter in a world that despised her felt stronger than ever. Evelyn decided she needed a break. With a heavy heart, she requested a pause from the editor, but the response was negative. "You can't just leave now, Evelyn. This is your moment," they told her, as if her life depended on her constant presence. This pressure made her feel trapped. Feeling cornered, Evelyn decided to visit Jack. She needed someone who understood her struggle. When Evelyn arrived at the shop, she found Jack in a state of confusion. He was surrounded by his mechanics, organizing everything while trying to process the news of the accident. Seeing the worried expression on his face, she felt an urge to comfort him, but the truth was that they were both broken. The conversation flowed between them like a turbulent river, filled with repressed emotions. Jack's pain and Evelyn's insecurity intertwined, creating a safe space where they could be vulnerable together. "Life isn't just about following your dreams, is it?" Jack said, his voice trembling. "It's about being present for those we love. I thought I was doing the right thing, but now, I don't know." Evelyn nodded, feeling that her own struggles were connected to Jack's by an invisible thread. She finally found the courage to confess her fears. "I'm scared too. Scared of failing, of not being enough. And now I feel like everything I've built could crumble at any moment." In that moment, a deep understanding blossomed between them. They were both seeking validation in worlds that felt heavier by the day. What Jack saw as a failure to pursue his dreams, Evelyn viewed as an opportunity to redefine what success truly meant. It wasn't just about fame or recognition, but about the authenticity and connection they were seeking in their lives. The revelation was a turning point. Jack decided that instead of distancing himself from the workshop, he could find a balance between his passions. He could be a photographer and still help his friends. With a new sense of purpose, he committed to dividing his time and using photography to tell stories about the mechanics and life in the workshop. Evelyn, in turn, realized she needed to distance herself from the stigma of fashion and seek a path that represented her more authentically, away from others' expectations. The friendship between Jack and Evelyn, strengthened by their vulnerabilities, became a source of mutual support. They learned that life is made up of ups and downs, and that challenges could be faced together. The emotional impact of this change led them to a new perspective, where success was no longer a destination, but a shared journey. They recognized that sometimes true growth comes from facing not only the fears that surround them, but also the fears that dwell within themselves. After their revealing conversation, Jack and Evelyn began to confront the consequences of their decisions. Jack, now determined to balance his passion for photography with the responsibility of being present in the workshop, felt a wave of relief mixed with anxiety. He knew that changes wouldn't be easy, but he was willing to try. In the following days, Jack started documenting life in the workshop through his camera. He captured small yet significant moments, like a mechanic laughing while fixing an engine, and another sharing stories of customers who became friends. Each click of the camera was a step toward a new purpose. However, he also faced the pressure of being an emerging photographer. The competition in the photography world was fierce, and Jack found himself battling doubt. He wondered if he could really balance both lives without failing at either. One morning, while reviewing his photos, Jack received a message from a photographer friend. The friend was organizing an exhibition and invited Jack to participate. Excitement quickly turned into anxiety. He wanted to showcase his work, but feared the public wouldn't accept it. The idea of rejection haunted him. Jack took a deep breath and decided that if he wanted to move forward, he needed to confront this fear head-on. He signed up for the exhibition, determined to show not just his photos but also the story behind them. Meanwhile, Evelyn was also dealing with her own battles. The pressure at work increased when she received notice that she had to present a new collection in a week. The designer who had criticized her would be in the audience, and the thought of facing him made her anxious. Evelyn felt paralyzed. The insecurities she had tried to ignore returned with force. She began to doubt her ability to create something that was true to herself and, at the same time, acceptable to the fashion world. One night, while working on her collection, Evelyn decided to seek out Jack. She needed someone who understood her. When she arrived at the workshop, she found Jack sitting on the floor, surrounded by his photos. He was so focused that he didn't notice her presence until she spoke. "Hey, Jack, are you okay?" He looked up, surprised, but a smile spread across his face when he saw her. "I'm trying. I'm preparing for an exhibition, but the pressure is intense," Jack confessed. Evelyn sat down beside him, and together they shared their frustrations. Their mutual support made them stronger. "Have you ever thought that maybe success is just being true to yourself?" Evelyn asked, looking at the photos. Jack nodded, understanding that authenticity was what truly mattered. But even with this new perspective, challenges persisted. On the day of the exhibition, Jack arrived at the gallery feeling nervous. The room was filled with people, and his heart began to race. Every face that passed felt like a judge, and doubt started to creep in again. As he waited, he remembered Evelyn. The strength she displayed, even in moments of insecurity, inspired him. He took a deep breath and decided that, regardless of the outcome, the exhibition was a celebration of his journey and experiences. On the other side of the city, Evelyn was preparing for her presentation. She looked at her reflection in the mirror, feeling the pressure mount. The designer's words still echoed in her mind. However, remembering Jack made her realize that she didn't need to shape herself to anyone's expectations. With that in mind, she decided to present her collection in a way that truly represented her, even if it meant taking risks. At the gallery, Jack finally took the stage. The initial reactions were hesitant, but as people began to engage with his stories, he realized he was connecting with them on a deeper level. He talked about life in the workshop, about the people who work there, and what it meant for him to capture those moments. The fear began to dissipate, and he felt a surge of confidence. Meanwhile, Evelyn climbed onto the stage. Nervousness accompanied her, but when she looked out at the audience, she saw Jack smiling. That simple gesture gave her the courage she needed. She presented her collection with authenticity, sharing not just the pieces, but also the stories behind each one. The audience was engaged, and she felt the energy shift. At the end of the event, both Jack and Evelyn walked away with a newfound understanding of themselves. They realized that life is a constant balance of ups and downs, where true strength comes from facing challenges together. The mutual support they found in each other became a foundation, allowing them both to grow and reinvent themselves. What once seemed like a solitary path was now a shared journey, filled with hope and possibilities. Jack and Evelyn were at a crucial point in their lives, where overcoming challenges and growth became essential. After the conversation that changed their perspectives, they embarked on new journeys, filled with hurdles but also opportunities. Jack, determined to find a balance between his passion for photography and his responsibilities at the workshop, began capturing the soul of the place with his camera. Each image he took not only recorded moments, but also reflected his internal struggles. He realized that photography could be a form of expression, a means to tell stories that might otherwise go unnoticed. Meanwhile, Evelyn faced her own battles in the fashion world. The pressure to please critics and conform to expectations left her paralyzed for a time. However, by opening up to Jack and finding support in their friendship, she began to remember who she truly was. The fear of failure was replaced by a determination to be true to herself. This new perspective drove her to create a collection that not only impressed, but also reflected her true essence. The day of the exhibition arrived, and Jack found himself surrounded by a sea of faces. The nervousness almost consumed him, but the memory of Evelyn and the support they shared helped him overcome his insecurities. He reminded himself that he was there to share his vision, not to please everyone. When he began to speak about his work, a transformation occurred. People started to connect with his stories, and the fear that had paralyzed him was replaced by a growing sense of confidence. Jack realized that success wasn't just about being recognized, but about being authentic and true to himself. On the other side of the city, Evelyn faced her own audience. The nervousness was still there, but looking at Jack, she felt she wasn't alone. His silent support gave her the courage she needed to express herself genuinely. During her presentation, she shared the stories that inspired her creations. Each piece in the collection held special meaning, and the audience began to engage, responding with enthusiasm. Evelyn realized that by being true to herself, she was not just presenting, but also connecting with those who were listening. This connection made her feel fulfilled, regardless of the criticisms she might receive. After the exhibition, both Jack and Evelyn emerged with a new understanding of themselves. They discovered that overcoming challenges was not a destination, but a continuous journey. Jack learned to trust more in his abilities and to accept that challenges were part of growth. He also realized that true wealth wasn't in awards or recognition, but in the ability to connect with others through his stories. Each photo he took and every moment he lived in the workshop became treasures he would carry with him. Evelyn, for her part, understood that she didn't need to mold herself to others' standards to succeed. What truly mattered was the authenticity of what she created. By liberating herself from the shackles of insecurity, she began to apply the lessons she had learned, not only in her work, but in her life. With Jack by her side, she found a new purpose and the courage to explore new paths, knowing that true beauty lay in being herself. The friendship between Jack and Evelyn grew stronger, becoming an essential pillar in their lives. They learned that having someone to share their struggles and victories made the journey more meaningful. Together, they faced challenges, found strength in each other, and supported one another in moments of doubt. This connection helped them grow, understanding that adversities were not obstacles, but opportunities for reinvention. Over time, Jack and Evelyn became examples of overcoming difficulties and transformation. They realized that every experience, good or bad, contributed to their story. And so, with courage and open hearts, they continued to forge their paths, knowing that, regardless of the challenges they faced, they could always count on each other. This friendship inspired them to dream bigger and believe that together they could achieve anything they set their minds to. Jack and Evelyn's exhibition had been a success, but now they found themselves facing a new challenge that would test everything they had learned. Jack was about to participate in a photography contest that could open doors for his career. He had been encouraged by Evelyn, who believed his talent deserved recognition. However, the pressure of competing against renowned photographers left Jack paralyzed once again, reminding him of the days when he felt insecure and invisible. On the night before the contest, he couldn't sleep. His photos were ready, but his mind was filled with doubts. What if he wasn't good enough? What if he couldn't convey the emotion he sought? Insecurity began to creep back in. It was then that he decided to call Evelyn. Hearing her voice began to calm something inside Jack. Evelyn always knew how to encourage him, and that night, she did just that. Jack, remember what you've learned. What matters is not winning, but the truth behind your photos. You have a story to tell, and that's what really counts, said Evelyn, her voice firm and full of conviction. Her words echoed in his mind, and for a moment, he felt confidence return. He recalled all the times he had captured the essence of people and places, and how that made him feel alive. On the day of the contest, Jack arrived at the venue with a mix of nervousness and determination. Looking around, he saw photographers who seemed so confident and experienced. Anxiety surged again, but he took a deep breath and remembered his conversation with Evelyn. He wasn't there to be the best, but to be true. When it was his turn to present his photos, Jack stepped onto the stage with his camera in hand and a flutter of fear in his heart. Looking out at the audience, he saw curious and attentive faces, and at that moment, his fear began to dissipate. He talked about each of the images, sharing the stories and emotions behind them. He spoke about the boy he captured playing in the rain, the elderly woman who smiled at him at the market, and the simple beauty of small things that often go unnoticed. As he spoke, Jack felt a connection with the audience. He was no longer there to compete, but to share. And by doing so, he realized he was freeing himself from the chains of insecurity. He saw the faces of the judges and the audience light up, which encouraged him even more. His voice steadied, and for the first time, he felt he was truly being heard. Across town, Evelyn was also facing a challenge. After her fashion collection was well received, she received a tempting offer from a major brand. It was a golden opportunity, but it also meant sacrificing her authenticity for material success. She was torn, remembering what she had learned about being true to herself. With a heavy heart, she decided to go to Jack, seeking support in their friendship. When she arrived at the contest venue, Evelyn saw Jack on stage. He was radiant, and that made her smile. When he finished, the audience gave him a standing ovation. Jack stepped off the stage, and they embraced. "You were amazing," Evelyn said, filled with pride. Jack looked into her eyes and in that moment, felt that the true victory was having someone like her by his side. Together, they talked about their struggles and choices. Jack shared with Evelyn the insecurity that had consumed him, and Evelyn revealed her doubts about the brand's offer. It was a moment of vulnerability and deep connection. They realized that regardless of external pressures, what truly mattered was the authenticity of their journeys. Evelyn's decision became clear. She could not compromise her essence for fame or money. Jack, for his part, felt that he had overcome his greatest challenge, not by winning the contest, but by finding his voice and the courage to express himself. Both learned that true wealth lies in being true to oneself, and that each choice shapes their story. By the end of the day, they both left with a renewed determination. Jack did not win the contest, but he was recognized for his authenticity and the way he touched people's hearts. Evelyn decided to create her own brand, where she could be true to herself without sacrificing her values. Their friendship grew even stronger, and they realized that together, they could face any challenge life threw their way. Jack and Evelyn learned that overcoming difficulties is not just about winning, but about personal growth and the strength they find in each other. They knew that, no matter what happened, they would always have each other to support and inspire. And so, they continued their journeys, stronger and more confident, ready to face whatever lay ahead. After the contest, Jack and Evelyn met at a cafe near the gallery, both still absorbing the energy of the day. Jack stared into his coffee cup, reflecting on the events that had unfolded. Although he hadn't won, the recognition he received made him feel more confident. The audience had been moved by his stories, and that was more valuable than any trophy. "Did you see their reaction?" Jack asked, a wide smile lighting up his face. It felt like I was sharing something everyone needed to hear. Evelyn smiled, noticing the spark in his eyes. "I always knew you had that ability. You just needed to believe in yourself. Sometimes victory isn't about a trophy, but about touching people's hearts." The conversation flowed naturally, and Jack began to share his ideas for future projects. He spoke about the possibility of creating a series of photographs that captured moments of simple happiness. "I want to show that beauty lies in the little things, in the small stories we all live," he said, filled with enthusiasm. Evelyn, on the other hand, was in a contemplative mood. The decision to decline the offer from the big brand still echoed in her mind. "You know, Jack, I've thought a lot about the proposal I received. It was tempting, but I can't give up who I am. I want to create something that truly represents my vision, my truth. I'm going to start my own brand where I can be authentic." Jack looked at her with admiration. "That's amazing, Evelyn. You deserve that space to express yourself. And I'll be here to support you every step of the way." Their friendship became a source of strength and inspiration. They both were aware that their challenges were not over, but now they faced the future with a fresh perspective. The insecurities that once paralyzed them were replaced by renewed determination. In the days that followed, Jack received invitations to showcase his photos in several local galleries. He was excited, but also aware that each new opportunity brought its own pressures. At one of those exhibitions, Evelyn was by his side, helping to organize everything. "Remember, Jack, just be yourself. That's what people want to see," she said, always ready to support him. As Jack prepared to talk about his photos at a new exhibition, he felt a wave of nervousness. But when he looked at Evelyn in the audience, he found the confidence he needed. "I'm here to tell stories," he thought. And so, he stepped onto the stage again, feeling more at ease, knowing that his authenticity was his greatest asset. Evelyn, on her own path, began working on her brand. She dedicated herself to creating pieces that reflected her unique vision and style. At one of the first fashion shows she organized, Jack was there, offering his support. He saw the joy on her face when people praised her creations. "You deserve this, Evelyn," he said after the show, feeling proud of his friend. Over time, both realized that their journeys were intertwined. The choices they made in pursuit of authenticity not only shaped their careers, but also strengthened their friendship. They became each other's support system, always ready to offer words of encouragement and advice. One night, while walking through the park, Jack stopped and said, "Remember those nights when I felt invisible? Everything has changed, hasn't it?" Evelyn nodded, looking up at the stars. "Yes, and it all started with the courage to be ourselves. We must never forget the power we have to inspire one another." They embraced, silently grateful for having found each other on their journeys. The insecurities still lingered, but now they were accompanied by a sense of purpose and clarity. Jack and Evelyn knew they could face any challenge together, and that true victory lay in being true to themselves and to each other. With smiles on their faces, they moved forward, ready for new adventures and stories to come, always certain that friendship and authenticity would be their guides. Throughout their journeys, Jack and Evelyn discovered that true success wasn't found in trophies or superficial recognition, but in authenticity and the ability to touch the hearts of those around them. Each, in their own way, had transformed. Jack, once insecure and invisible, was now a photographer telling stories through his images. He had learned to value his voice and the importance of sharing his experiences, even if it meant confronting his fears. Evelyn, on the other hand, had taken a bold step by deciding to follow her own path. By creating her brand, she not only freed herself from external expectations, but also reinvented herself as an artist. Her creations were a reflection of her truth, a celebration of her individuality. The support she received from Jack was crucial, and their friendship deepened with each accomplishment and challenge. Jack's exhibitions became a gathering place for those seeking inspiration. He realized that his photos were not just images. They were invitations for others to share their own stories. The conversations that arose after their presentations were deep and emotional, and he realized that by opening his heart, he was helping others feel seen and heard. Evelyn, in turn, saw her brand grow, and with it, her confidence. People were not only interested in her creations, but also connected with the message that each piece conveyed. She began receiving invitations to participate in events and collaborations, and each opportunity took her further on her journey. When she looked back, she saw not just a path filled with challenges, but also with overcoming obstacles and valuable lessons learned. On a special night, Jack and Evelyn gathered to celebrate their achievements. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and stories, and in that moment, they both felt grateful. The journey hadn't been easy, but each obstacle had only made them stronger and more determined. Jack raised his glass and said, "True victory is not just about reaching goals, but about who we become in the process." Evelyn smiled, feeling a wave of joy. "And about how we can impact each other's lives. Our stories are intertwined, and that's something no one can take away from us." They toasted, celebrating not only their individual accomplishments, but also the strength they found in one another. Their friendship was not just a support system, but a continuous source of inspiration. Jack and Evelyn learned that success is a broad concept, and each had their own definition. They became living examples that, with courage and authenticity, it is possible to turn challenges into opportunities. And so the story of Jack and Evelyn does not end with a period, but with a comma. They continued to explore their passions, share their experiences, and inspire others along the way. The message they left is clear. Never underestimate the power of being true to yourself and the positive impact it can have on the lives of those around you. If you have also gone through a journey of discovery and overcoming, share your experiences in the comments. Let's celebrate the small victories and the great transformations together. Like and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this one. Your story matters, and we want to hear from you.